योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्.
Namaskar. This is Dr. Nilam from BK School of Professional and Management Studies, Gujarat University. And I welcome you all in this session by UGC HRDC. At the outset, I would like to thank UGC HRDC for providing me this wonderful opportunity to interact with you all participants of the refresher course. I would like to thank Professor Jagdish Joshi and team members for this great opportunity. Friends, let me tell you that UGC HRDC has been doing a wonderful job since the beginning, and especially in this COVID time, it has proved and it has performed phenomenally greatly. So, thanks once again, and let us go ahead with the session today. So, friends, today's session is on case writing the journey. We all know that case writing is one of the very important part, and whenever it is all about delivering case, and whenever it is all about writing the case, then all of us know that case writing plays a very important role. And so when we are saying the case writing, then let me tell you that it's going to be a very important session for the day. Friends, many times we have a query that I want to be a case writer. I want to enable learners to learn mine by getting involved in the situation. So, what happens is when you are a case writer, first of all, you have to enable learners to learn by getting them involved in a particular situation. And for that, first of all, you need to get into that situation. So you have to decide, and you have to see the patterns in the situations and derive the lessons for the self and others. So when you want to be a case writer, the first question that is coming to you is why? Why you want to be case writer? So there are multiple purposes behind the case writing. First is felt course or a program need. Now, many times what happens is because of the course requirement, you want to be a case writer, or because of the requirement of the program itself, you want to become a case writer. That may be the purpose. Secondly, you are becoming a writer because of your research interest. Friend, many a time we know that research interest is becoming an important, and people are becoming case writer because of their research interest. They try to collect the data, try to collect the information, try to compile the information, try to set the information, and try to develop the case so that whatever research they have done, whatever data they have collected out of their research work, that can be presented in the form of case. So that is the another purpose of case writing. The third is a personal progress. Friends, many times as we know that, there are many institutions where if there is no case, then there is no promotion. So when there is no case, no promotion, in those type of institutions, case writings become imperative. For example, if we talk about the institutes like Indian Institute of Management, then case writing is a very important component for the progress. So for the personal progress also, people do write a case. Then the school imperative, that is school, that is a business schools or a management school or any institute in which you are working. If there is imperative from the school or the institution, you have to write a case. And many a times people write a case just out of curiosity. They want to know, they want to grow, they want to understand what is happening, they want to analyze the problem, they want to analyze the situation, they want to give the solutions. So these are the various purposes because of which people do write the case. Friends, whatever may be the purpose, but the important thing is writing a case. We all know that publication in the Scopus Index journal, publication in ABDC journals, that is becoming a very challenging task. And in those situations, if you write a case, it is having, along with the multiple purposes, it is having a multiple benefit also. Multiple benefits includes it is helpful to the students, it is helpful to the institute, it is helpful for the program, it is helpful to the participants of a different schools or different institutes across the nation, and importantly it is helping in the contribution to the society in the form of research. It is also helpful and beneficial in terms of the personal progress. And if your case is published in some of the reputed institutions or agencies or journals, then that is also an added advantage. So the main thing is how to write a case and what is a case. So let us try to understand what is a case. Friends, a case is a description of a real life situation involving a decision maker. So, whatever is happening in a real life, when you are trying to describe it, okay, and when you're putting a person as a decision maker, that may become a case. Just an example, the decision maker needs to decide something and take responsibility for review, decision, implementation, and its consequences, right? So decision maker has done something, and now you, that is the writer and the reader. So the writer should keep in mind the reader's perspective. The writer have to first of all wear the shoes of a decision maker. The writer has to see the real life situation. The writer has to understand where exactly the problem is, and then he has to put it on a paper. Now, when he's putting on a paper, he has to make sure that he has to provide a situation whereby the decision makers need to decide something, need to take a responsibility for review, need to make a decision, need to implement, need to see the consequences, and it has done something out of the situation. So, what is the role as a case writer? Friends, as a case writer, you are representatives of the learner or a researcher. You are representative of the people. You are representative of the people who are going to read. You are representative of the overall, parties who are involved into it. And you are representatives of the audience as a whole. So whatever you are doing as a case writer, certainly it is going to, benefit, and it is going to create a situation, right? So you are representative of the learner, you're representative of the researcher. Now the point is, how do you separate the decision maker to be from researcher in terms of role? Now this is very important, because how to separate a decision maker to be from the researcher in terms of role? So, friends, let me tell you that many times when you are writing a case, you have to make sure that there is a decision maker. As a case writer, you have to see the timing, you have to see the purpose of writing the case, first of all. So, why do you write a case? Whom you want to target? Who would be the reader? What would be your approach? What would be the prerequisites of writing a case? What you want to reveal? What you want to hide? What is the scope of the case? These are the things that you need to determine well in advance. So, when you are saying a case is in between, but in between there's a case, and you have to look into from different perspectives. Now, which are these perspectives? So the first is case writer himself or herself, right? Second is learners. You have to wear the shoes of a learners, the readers of the case. The third is you have to think from the perspective of the facilitator also. That is the teacher who is going to teach the case, because you may have to provide teaching notes also. And the fourth is you have to look into from the perspective of the publishers or provider of the case who are going to publish the case. Now, let us try to understand one after the other. So, as I say, as a case writer, number one, you need to look into the timing when you want to launch the case. What is the purpose of writing the case? What is the scope of the case? Say, for example, you want to write a case for the entrepreneurship development as a subject. You want to write that entrepreneurship development case as a entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, as a women entrepreneur, as a techno entrepreneur, whom you want to target as an audience, whom you want people to think about, whom you want people to wear a shoes of. You have to be very, very clear in the beginning itself about the time, about the purpose, about for whom you are writing, about the subject for which you are writing. Say entrepreneurship development is a subject. Now, in that, which module are you targeting? Are you targeting entrepreneurship development as a module? Are you targeting women entrepreneurship as a module? Are you targeting rural entrepreneurship as a module? Are you targeting techno entrepreneurship as a module? Which module you are going to put this case, and the target is all about. Then the third thing is within the module, which session are you looking for? Which session are you targeting for making that case to be explained by the facilitator in the class? So you need to be clear as a writer in the beginning itself about the scope of the case. You are targeting to a particular audience. Okay, so who would be the reader? Who would be the learners? Right? What are the gaps that you want to give to them? What should be the focus of the case? So you have to clear about the subject, you have to be clear about the modules, you have to be clear about the chapters, and in the chapters also you have to be very, very clear about the topic that you are going to discuss, right? So, whenever you are writing the case, you have to be very, very clear that you are writing in phases. You have to have cache, that is knowledge, attitude, skills, and a habit. Now, the habit, not necessary that you have a habit of writing the case, but then certainly when you are starting writing a case, then it is trying to give you, and it will definitely try to inculcate the habit of writing the case. Now, the second important is the case writer has to look into from the perspective of the learner also. Learner has to be given the missing information. So your approach while you're writing a case, it should be learner centric approach. It should be evaluation based approach. It should be trying to identify what is the missing information, right? Now, the third is you have to look into from the perspective of the facilitator. Now, that is also very, very important for you, right? Because as a facilitator, you need to look into that whenever you are providing the case, then as a facilitator, how the facilitator will deal the case in the class. What type of questions would he ask in the class? What type of questions and the points to be discussed in the class? What type of questions to be posed to the students in the class? What type of the context you want to set? You want to set a management context, you want to set a non-management context, or whatever may be the type of the context that you want to set. You also have to look into the linkages with the other department, linkages with the other subject, linkages with the program, linkages with the course, linkages with the module, and the linkages with the position of the case. So as a case writer, you have to think from the facilitator perspective also. You have to look into exactly where the case would be put by the facilitator and how he would teach the model. And so you have to provide a teaching note also whenever you are writing a case. Another point is you have to think when you are thinking from the point of view of the facilitators, you also have to look into the size, you have to look into the solution, you have to look into the format, you have to look into the dates, you have to look into the expiry dates, you have to look into the routes, you have to look into the steps, okay, and you may have to look into some aspects that you may like to involve, say for example the conflicts, say for example the real life situation, say for example the practical examples you want to draw in the case. So you have to be very clear about it. And the fourth thing is you have to think from the perspective of the provider of the case. That is, you have to look into the attributes, you have to look into the aspirations, you have to look into who would be the publisher of my case. Am I interested to get it published from Emerald? Am I interested to get it published from eBay or any other publishing house? Like, where I want to distribute it, where I want to get it published, who would be the administrator, what would be the copyright and the issues, what would be the disclosures, right? So, what would be the ethical and what would be the things which is unethical? What would be the legalities of writing the case, right? Many times when we want to go for the legalities and when we want to go for the publishing, then you may need to collect the approvals from the companies, approvals from the people, approvals from the parties who are involved directly or indirectly with the case. So the point is, whenever you are developing the case, it is important for you to see that you analyze the aspect from the perspective of the publisher. You're trying to look into distributors. You're trying to look into attributes from the perspective of the providers. You're trying to look into the aspirations of the people who are involved in the process. And importantly, the copyright, the legality aspects are also one of the very important. So this is the external aspect that I have talked about when you are trying to develop the case. So when you are trying to develop a case, again I'm telling, the case is in between, but there are four important parties who are roundabout or who are involved in a case as a process. So the first is a case writer, second is a learner himself or herself, third is facilitators, and the fourth is administrators. That may include publishing house, providers, distributors, attributes providers, or other parties who are involved in a case writing process. Now, when you are writing a case, again, another important part is recording is very important, right? Recording of each and important aspect is very important. Recording keeping of the character is important. Record keeping of the answers to the questions that is coming into your mind as a writer is also important. Recording of the objectives of writing a case is important. Recording of the qualifiers is important. Recording of the sensitivity to the process and the structure is important. Recording of the size and solution of the problem is important. Recording of how centrally you have designed each small aspects you need to discuss and you need to remember while you are writing the case. Now, the important thing is whether you want to be in the case or you want to be out of the case. That is, whenever you are writing the case, you have to look into from three perspectives again. One is pre-class, second is in class, and third is in the case itself. Okay, so what happens is you have to look into pre-class. Now, what do I mean by pre-class over here? Pre-class, in-class, and a post-class preparation is important. Now, what happens is, as a learner or as a writer, both the way, as a facilitator, you have to do the pre-class preparation. Same way as a writer also, since you are going to target the case to be put in the class, you have to do pre-class preparation. You have to also do in-class preparation. In-class preparation here means the roles that you are going to get play, the role of the teams that you are going to involve, the role of the people that you are going to involve. Okay, and the thirdly, it would be a post class. So post class here means after the class, post class, right? How would be an impact? What would be the exercise that you would like to give? What would be the aspects that you would like to think them to discuss them and the things like that, right? So the point is, whenever you are developing the case, another important aspect is you need to look into from the three perspective, that is pre-class, in the class, and the post-class. Now this is again a very very important point while you're talking about the journey of the case writing. So friends, so far what we have tried to discuss, that is talking about, how as a case writer you are going to deal with the situation, or how as a case writer you are going to be with the people, maybe a facilitator, maybe a writer, maybe a learner, maybe a decision maker, or even whatever maybe the roles that you are trying to assign to them. Okay, that would be very very important. So how do you separate the decision maker to be from the researcher in terms of roles? That is a very very important aspect. So let us look into what is a decision maker and what is a researcher. So decision maker uses existing knowledge to size up, generate alternatives, and decide. And the generation of the new knowledge is not primary. So, friend, decision makers, they are trying to use the existing knowledge. They're trying to see what is happening. They're trying to collect the information. They're trying to size up. They're trying to generate the alternatives, and they then decide. On the other hand, decision makers are also generating new knowledge, and that is not a primary. The second, on the other hand, is a researcher, which is talking about uses existing knowledge to generate the new knowledge for the theory and applications. So what does the researcher does is they're trying to use the existing knowledge to generate new knowledge for theory and the applications. So when you start a journey of case writing, you can see these are the key milestones. Let us try to understand one after the other. First of all, let us list it down. So the first is occurrence recognition. Okay, then you are trying to associate your learning objective and your learning leading definition. Then you'll have to have clearance from the organization and a resource allocation. After that, you have to collect the data. Once you collect the data, you need to draft the case. Once you draft the case, you can first cross check and redraft. Okay, and once you have redrafted it and cross check it, then you can go for testing in the class, at your own institute, with your own students, and try to identify the gaps, if any. If there are any gaps, you can take the corrective actions well in advance. And then you would try to see the clearance, okay, and you would try to see that the registration of the case is done. So let us try to understand one after the other. So first is occurrence recognition. So friends, development in the organization and the environment in which someone was involved. First of all, what you are trying to do is you are trying to create an occurrence. You're trying to create a situation. You're trying to give an environment. of the organization or of the situation which has been already passed through by someone, or in which you can involve someone. Okay, so you are giving a situation, you are giving an environment, you are giving a problem, you are giving an idea about what is happening. And so first of all, at the first stage, you are identifying what is occurrence and what is the occurrence recognition. Now, the second is a case lead definition. Now, associate a learning objective with the occurrence and define a case lead. That is very, very important. You have to associate a learning objective with the occurrence and define a case lead. You have to identify what is the case lead. Now, here you need to determine the learning objective. As I say, you need to link it with the session. You need to link it with a module. You need to link it with a course. You have to link it with a program. You have of an educational institution in which and for which you are writing a case. Correct. So, say for example, you're writing a case for the entrepreneurship development. As I already gave an example, I'll continue with that example. So, you're writing a case, say, on entrepreneurship development, and in that, you have to think what is the mission of the institute for which you are writing. So the mission or the vision of the institute may be to provide the education with reference to the entrepreneurship and innovation. Now, if the objective or the mission of the institution is to provide entrepreneurial education, then in the which program you want to put your case? You want to put your case in an MBA, you want to put your case in some PG diploma program, you want to put your case in some entrepreneurship awareness camp program, you want to put your case in the faculty development program, you want to put your case in any certificate program, you want to put a case in any graduation degree program, or you want to put a case in any startup and innovation specific awareness program. Where exactly you want to put your case? In which program? So first you will look into the mission of the institution. Second, you will try to look into which program exactly. Now in the program, right? In the program itself, faculty development program, student development program, executive development program, which program, and in that program, which course are you targeting? Are you targeting the case on the entrepreneurship for commerce student? Okay, you are targeting for the BCom course, you are targeting for the MBA course, you are targeting for the MBA in entrepreneurship course, you are targeting for art student, or you want to develop an interdisciplinary case which is used by anyone under the sky, right? So whom you are targeting, which course you are targeting, that you need to define at a very foremost level. And then which module you are targeting, in which module you are going to put. Once you have decided the course, in that course you need to look into the course objective, you need to look into the course learning outcome, and then you need to look into the module. Okay, so when you have course objective in your hand, when you have course learning outcome in your hand, then what would happen is at the end you would be able to place that case in a particular module, and at the end of that case those objectives of the module and the course learning outcomes which you have already defined should be able to achieve. And then you also have to place it exactly in which session you would like to put the case. Which session are you targeting? Is the case all about women? So you may be targeting on a women entrepreneurship. Is the case all about the rural entrepreneurship? Is the case all about techno entrepreneurship? Is the case all about the institutions which is providing the support? Whichever may be the subject, according to the subject, according to the course, according to the session, and according to the session plan itself for a particular session, if the students are learning this case, they would be able to understand XYZ. you need to be very, very definite about the course learning outcome, about the case outcome, about the session outcome. Say, for example, you are developing a case on characteristic of an entrepreneur. And so you are giving a situation that XYZ is a person and he is having this quality and that quality. And do you think that he would become an entrepreneur? So, here your objective is to give an idea about the entrepreneurial qualities or the entrepreneurial characteristics that is possessed by an individual. So, your course learning outcome may be the entrepreneurship development as a whole, but your session learning outcome is to make students understand about the characteristics that an entrepreneur should possess. So, with that, whatever you are developing, whichever things that you are writing, you have to keep in mind that this is my objective, that this is the objective that should be achieved at the end of the session. This is the objective that should be achieved at the end of the module. This is the objective that should be achieved at the end of the course. And this is the objective with the help of which I would be able to meet my program expectations and I would be achieve the mission and the vision of any institution. So defining case lead is a greater importance. If you define case lead in a very particular way, then your job is half done. 50% of the job is all about definition. 50% of job is all about placing the case at a right place. Because once you are clear with placement of the case, in which module, in which session, in which class, then you would be very, very clear about it and you would write in a particular. So, where are these occurrences reported? Occurrence recognition when we are doing and when we want to place the case, how would I start? How would I get an idea that something has happened somewhere? So the answer is it is everywhere. You can see here and there. Just read the newspapers, when you're reading the magazines, when you are going to the channels and listening to the news, you are getting an idea about something that is happening around you. If you talk about the corporates, then interactions with the executives is also one of the way out in which you can get an idea. Consulting assignments, that is again one of the very, very important aspects. Many a times, you're getting an assignment from the different agencies, okay, from the different, consulting assignments, and with the help of which you are able to know that, okay, something, of this type is happening, and I can write a case on that. Okay, many times with the help of the guest sessions that you might have, conducted somewhere, maybe in some company in the executive development program, or maybe in some other organization where you have a good networking and you have gone for a guest session whereby, something that has happened and that has, made you think over of writing a case for the students, right? Many a times people visit to the industry for writing a case. They meet to the MDs, they meet to the board of directors, they meet to the managers, they meet to even the clerical staff or, or even the industry people who are involved in the process to know about the occurrence. But remember, for this, you need to collect the data. You need to collect the information. You need to ask to the permissions. You have to ask for the permissions. Say for example, I want to go in the gift city and write a case on the gift city. I cannot straight away enter into the gift city and asking to the people that what is happening in your organization, and nobody would give me an information without any authenticity. So first of all, I should take the permissions from the authority that yes, I'm so and so, I'm teaching in so and so subject, I'm in this institute, I, as a part of the academic activities, want to develop the course and want to develop the case. And for that case purpose, I want to have the collection of the information or the data from your company. Kindly suggest me the people to whom should I meet for this type of things. And once you provide the information provided by you would not be used for any other purpose except the academic purpose, and that assurance I am giving. Like that, addressing to the authorities, you may have to write a letter, and once you get a permission, then and then you can go ahead with the case. Yeah. So then and then you can visit to the industry, then and then you can collect the data, collect the information, analyze the information, connect to the people, ask to the people, that all liberty you would get once you have a permission. Many times people don't go anywhere. Neither they look into the newspaper, nor the magazines, nor the channels, neither they interact with the executives, nor they are looking for some consultancy assignments and the things like that, but they write on the basis of their own experiences. That is the reflections on their own experiences about the self, about the colleagues, about, whatever is happening around you. Say, for example, communication. Now, if somebody is writing about a case on the communication, he may write down on the communication barriers. He may write down on the communication gaps. He may write down a power of the verbal communication or a non-verbal communication and the things like that. Now, these are the type of the things that are happening all around us. It is happening day by day around us. So based upon self experience, based upon the colleagues experience that might have happened, you may try to take their opinion, you may try to collect the information from them, and you may like to go for collecting the information and write a case on that. So whether your case lead that you are targeting, whether you are deciding is perfectly all right or not, for that you need to look into 3-4 aspects. Number one is significance of the learning and fit with the program, right? So I am targeting for teaching the course of accounting, but I am getting the data of some entrepreneur, and so I am writing a case on entrepreneur, not them. I am writing the data, or I am interested in writing the case for the communication skills, and I'm getting some information from some accountant about some financial data. Let me put it on paper and get it over. No, not them, right? So the program outcome, the course learning outcome, the session outcome, and the learning from the case, it should be matched. It is very, very important to see that the learning that you're going to provide is a significance, okay, and it is fitting with the program. Another thing is you need to look into the resources that are needed and the resources that are available. Is there any gap between the two? What are the resources that are needed for writing the case? Do you need to connect the people? Do you need to take some interviews? Do you need to have some, information from the libraries? Do you need to have availability of some data? Okay, so the data may be quantitative, the data may be qualitative. What type of resources and what type of data would you like to have? And once you are clear with the type of the information and the data that you would like to have, you have to look into whether it would be available in reality or not, right? So I may be interested in writing a case about the financial losses of a particular company, and when I approach the company is not ready to give me any quantitative information. So the significance must be fine, the course learning outcome is matching, the session learning outcome is matching, everything is fine and fantastic, but the data is not available. What would you do? You will not be able to write the case, right? So availability of data, whether the data would be available or not, whether there would be someone who is ready to provide you the data, either it is a company or it is individual or it is any other agency that you are targeting, you'll get it or not. That's important. And then ultimately you have to look into your own comfort level. Friends, comfort level of writer is very, very important, and that comfort would be available only and only when you are clear with the objective, when you are clear with where you want to place it, when you are clear that you would get the data, and when you have permissions from the authorities or the clearances available with you. So whatever clearances, whatever permissions you may need to take either from the government or from private institution or from anywhere or any individual for that matter, you need to take that in advance. And when you are clear, when you are getting a clearances, then you will be more confident. Then you are not hesitating towards writing the name of the company, maybe writing the name of the person, maybe writing the facts and the figures of any particular company. And so, assessment of the clearances that you are receiving, that is very, very important. In fact, for that matter, you can get it checked with the other people who are senior to you or who are in your group who can give you the right idea. Now, the clearances may be from the institutes. That institution doesn't have any objection about the case writing. Institution or the organization doesn't have any objection. Organization where you are exactly working and the organization for whom you are writing the case. Okay. For pursue the lead, that is, you have to get a clearance from the organization or the institution for taking the lead, for preparing the a proposal, right? You have to describe your intent. You have to talk about your expectations. You have to look into the resource provision, how much resources are available, whether there is any provision or not. You have to look into the assurances also and the other related steps, right? So that is important. Now, if it is required, you should go to the company itself. So company, going to the company and having initial interaction and credibility building, that is again a very, very important. You also need to go for detailed data collection. Okay, so whenever you are developing the case, you may need to go for detailed data collection, right? You need to go for interviews, you may need to go for secondary data collection, you may need to go for, company data, you may like to have a secondary data as well as primary data also. So that is again a very, very important. It is also important to see that the data is also collection, additionally from the secondary resources. So you may like to visit the libraries, you may like to see the collection of the newspapers, magazines, journals, or any source or documents from which you may get the real base and the data for the case. Another thing is content of a case, and importantly, the case which is a decision oriented case, you have to keep in mind the context for the decision making, right? So, in a decision making situation, you have to look into what are the key developments that has happened, organization, its performance, right? You have to look into from the perspective of the individual. You have to look into from the perspective of the industry and competition, whether it is domestic, whether it is international, or economy in general. To whom are you targeting, right? You also have to look in the options considered and their pros and cons and supporting exhibits and appendixes. Now, friends, supporting exhibits and appendix are also very, very important. So, what are the options that are considered? What are the pros and cons? That also should be a part of the decision making course. And if your case is a research oriented case, then you should look into these aspects. Okay, so if it is a teaching case, if it is a research case, let us try to compare. So if it is a teaching or a learning case, then your objective is to facilitate the training. Your objective is to facilitate the learners and the knowledge sharing. But if it is a research case, then it would be an in-depth look at a particular event, particular situation, and an entity. So that is the basic difference that you have to keep in mind. Now, if it is a teaching learning type of case, you have to have a storyline that group can get immersed in and relate to, right? So, you can highlight the practical applications of the theory that is happening in the teaching learning. And also, it reflects the ambiguity of the situation. If there's any confusion, I mean, you have to write it that way that person has to decide something, but he's not able to decide because of particular situation, and they need to have a single outcome, right? So the intent being to create a dialogue, encourage critical thinking, and lead to a research of evaluation of the alternative and come to the recommendations. So the teaching learning type of cases need to be reflect ambiguous, need to be creative enough in creating the situations whereby the learners put and wear the shoes of a person whose picture is drawn in a case. On the other hand, if it is a research case, then, a methodology used to inform the quantitative research findings and identify areas, where more quantity is needed. Okay, so quantitatives are more needed, and very specific data is needed if it is a research case. Okay, associated with the qualitative research, ethnography, field study, and the participant observation. These are some of the techniques that you can use. These are associated with the qualitative research, with the ethnography, field study, and the participant observation. So, when you are in a real situation of writing the case, after analyzing everything so far, that whether it is a teaching case, learning course, research based case, who would be the people, who would be the facilitator, how would they use all the things that you have seen so far, when you are writing a case, these are the important aspects that you need to keep in mind. So, what is those important aspects? The first is past tense. It should be in the past tense only. It cannot be in the present tense. It cannot be in the future tense. The case should be written in past tense. Number one. Number two is it should be able to identify and establish an issue or a problem which can be used to teach or explore a concept or a theory. Okay, so you should be able to establish an issue, okay, or you should be established, or I mean give a participant a situation of identifying a problem which can be used to teach or explore a particular concept or theory. So you have to be very, very specific that this case is for teaching this theory or that concept. You have to be clear when you are writing. Now, the opening para, when you write or when you start the case, the opening para should include who is the main protagonist, who is the key decision maker, what is the nature of the issue or the problem. You have to show the nature of the issue. You have to show the nature of the problem. When did the case take place? So give a situation or give the year particularly. Specify the deadline in the paragraph. Deadline, not necessarily exact date, but then a hypothetical date is also fine. And if you have got a permission to write the date, then that is also fantastic. So, but you have to give at least a time slot that this thing happened, in a particular horizon of time. You also need to, show where did the case take place, which organization. So if the organization is allowing you, then and then of course you can write down this. If not allowing you, you can name the organization like ABC Limited, XYZ Limited, and the things like that. Okay. And in the opening paragraph itself, you have to mention why did the issue raise, why the problem arise, right? So that is also one of the very, very important aspect that you have to keep in mind. Now, the second part is a body of the case. Friends, in the body of the case, you are telling them the whole story. And these story would be in a chronological order, of course. You'll say in the beginning that was happening, in the morning this was happened, then this happened. chronologically the events you would have to give, and you would have to tell the whole story. It would contain the general background on the macro environment, organizational background, and the details of the specific issues that are faced. Okay, so you'll talk about the broader level, you'll talk about the industry, you'll talk about the industrial environment, then you will come back to the organization's environment, details about the organization, maybe a market share, maybe a general information about the organization, and then slowly and gradually you would go to the department for which you are talking about. Then you would talk about the specific issues that is faced in the in the organization, and then you're telling more than one side to the story so that the learners can think of competing alternatives. So that is also very very important, that while you're writing down you have to be specific, telling more than the one side to the story, that the learner can think of competing the alternatives. So the body of the case should be like that. Body of the case should tell exactly all the situation and whole story about the case in general. And thirdly, in the concluding paragraph, you have to provide a short synthesis of the case to reiterate the main issues or even to raise the new questions. So while you are concluding the case, remember that you have to provide a short synthesis. You have to create a situation whereby they are able to analyze, they're able to conclude, they are able to raise new questions, and there is a brainstorming exercise in the minds of the reader. So, friends, while you're writing the case, these are the three main important aspects. That is the opening para, the case should be in the past tense, right? The opening para, the body of the case, and the concluding paragraph. These two slides are very, very important because it is talking about exactly how you should put the case on paper. Now, in a case study research, design and methods are very, very important. So, what happens is a protocol defines the instrument for the research, but also the procedures and the general rules that should be followed using the instrument. So, what is included here? The overview of the study project. So if it is a case study research, the overview of the study project, what are the objectives, what are the issues, what are the readings, even the literature and research should be defined there. Then secondly, you should also focus upon the field procedures. So access to field sites, sources of information, these are again very, very important things that you need to focus upon. Another thing is case study question posed to investigators, that is the key classifications, suggestions for the likely source of evidence, and not the literal questions to be asked, right? And then guide for the case study report should be there. So in the case study research, the designs and the methodology, defining the protocols, procedure, general rules, other than that, the overall study project, the overall field process, the overall way in which you carried out, and the investigators who are involved, that all should be included. Then co-authorship is also a very good in the case study, because many times you alone may not be able to collect all the information. You may be a good writer, but you may not be good networker. You may have a good friend who is having a great networking, and you are having a good writing skill. You can collaborate, right? So where to find a co-author? Your supervisor can be your co-author, right? Your colleague can be your co-author, right? You might meet people in the conferences, you might meet people, in the seminars. You might have interaction of the people, in different programs or the workshop. You might include some people, or you also need to associate with the publication houses, right? Who would publish the case? Because until and unless it is registered or published, no one would like to, use your case. And so publication is very, very important. So ultimately, what are the benefits? The benefits are the first time authors. It would demonstrate the authority and rigor of the research, and especially it will be useful for the cross-disciplinary research, right? So co-authorship is a good opportunity. If you are getting an opportunity as a co-author, you should grab it with a both hands, right? Because it will add value. It would give you a direction. It would make you learn about how to do it. It can draw on a variety of strengths, and it can be a cross disciplinary case. So, if you have written on an entrepreneurship, keeping in mind only the students who are learning the entrepreneurship, but there might be another author who is from arts or the languages background and who is connecting the case with a different perspective and a story. So people have a different, writing skills and may even contradict with each other. And so you have to make sure in the co-authorship set or co-authorship that, the paper reads as a whole and as a one voice. I'm writing some para and my partner is writing some para, and then I'm joining it without reading and without connecting, then it would be of no use. It should be a one voice and there are no conflicting statements or the duplication. Another thing is when you have a co-authorship, do not have to share the work evenly. 50-50 kar lete hai, वैसा नहीं. You have to look into your individual strength, right? One author may be better at the data analysis, another may be a good writer. Okay, so if he is a statistician, let him be at the stats only and not the writing, because it is not necessary that he or she can do everything, or it is even not necessary that you are able to do everything. So try to identify what are the strengths of your partner or a co-author, and accordingly you divide the work. Otherwise, it would be a problem. And the third is agree and clarify order of appearance to the authors. Okay, कैसे आप लिखोगे? First con, second con, appearance of the author. Very important, because that cannot be changed after the publication. If you're writing down Nilam Panchal as a first name, I'm the first author and you would be the second author. If you're writing down your name in the first author, you have to make sure that your co-author has no problem with that. So decide on who should be the corresponding author, who should be the person who is the quickest to reply on emails. Okay, there are so many people who are not looking at emails even after 10 days, and I would look into it at my own ease and my own time. That would not work over here. There's no always something that needs to be clarified. For example, missing references, copyright, these are the things need not to, clarify always. If it takes 3 weeks for you to reply, the publication of your paper will be delayed, of course. So the quicker the publisher receives the reply, the quicker would be the publication. And so agree and clarify the order of writing the name of the authors, and the writing the name of the corresponding author should be the one who is quickest in replying, so that your work is not delayed. Okay, so what makes a good teaching or learning a case? So case should be a case and not a story. You're not writing a story, right? You are writing a situation, you're giving a situation, you are trying to write a case in which people get into that situation. You should tackle a relevant and important issue, right? It should be voyage of discovery. That should not be controversy to the case, but within the case you can create a situation where there is a controversy and there is a problem which you need to solve. So for that, you need to contrast and you need to compare. You need to use the currently useful generalizations that you have to keep in mind. You have to have the data to tackle and not the solve the problem. You need not to solve the problem, right? What makes good teaching is facilitate in a better way. giving ideas and then leave it upon that. Give them, ideas in which they are able to think ahead, right? You have to give a personal touch. You have to make sure that it is a well structured, it is a in a normal language, it is easy to read, and it is pertinent topic, whereby teaching or learning. So either for a facilitator or for a learner, it is not a problematic. Friends, there are some common mistakes that people do while teaching a case. So, written as a research article and not as a case. People feel that it is written as a research article and not as a case, and so they read it and they teach it as a research article and not as a case. So, submitting a case that has never been tried out on the learners, right? Taking sides, that is again a common mistake. You as a facilitator need not to take a side, any side. I mean, you have to pose a question. You have to include analysis. You have to share the lesson learned, right? You have to create a situation whereby people not follow your instruction, and even you need not to follow the instructions about the others. So author's guideline, suppose I am a writer and if I am writing some guidelines, it is always not necessary that you have to follow stepwise the same process, because you might have a better idea to deal with the case and to teach the case in the class, right? So where exactly it is featured, how it would be featured, where you would connecting, okay, where it would be suitable. So these are the things, if people are making a mistake and they strictly follow certain things, okay, so which should not be done. So when you're writing down teaching note, case is always supported by a teaching note. So when you are writing a case, you have to make sure that you are writing a teaching note. And when you are writing a teaching note, you have to look into case synopsis. You have to first of all write a case synopsis, and then you have to look into the target audience. You have to clear the learning objectives of the case. You have to look into the suggested session time broken down by the topics. Okay, if the session time is 2 hours, then at the end of the first session this should be covered, and at the end of the second session this should be covered, right? So what can be the type of assignment you can give? So suggested student learner assignment, then a brief description of the opening 10 to 15 minutes, that should be given, that can be given, the outline can be given in a teaching note so that the facilitator can start accordingly. May or may not start, but you as a writer have to give that. Okay, challenging case discussion questions with the sample answers. That is again very, very important. You have to give the sample answers also, and a brief description of the closing. So opening and closing में क्या रहेगा? Okay, so brief description you need to keep. And any update of what actually happened, that also can be given. If there is, some situation that has happened and that you want participant to discuss during the case, then ultimately in the teaching note, you have to give a reference on exactly what has happened in the organization. So at the end, the facilitator can teach and can discuss that thing in the class. And lastly, you should also attach the supporting material, right? Either it is worksheets or it is linked to the video, or it is, about the readings or about the reference material, whatever it is, but then you should provide it. Okay, so teaching the case requires some additional information. So people go without any additional information would not be able to succeed in teaching the case. You need to have side-by-side information, and you need to prepare a teaching plan, supported by one-page instructor note for yourself. Suggested answer are not supported by the case, right? So you need not to support to the people also in the class, either support or oppose, right? But and there's no need also of sample answers or sample analysis and the things like that. Okay, so this way, keeping in mind the thing, you should finalize the check, you should go for the editorial check, get clearances, complete the finalization, and then go for registration. And once you have gone for the registration, then seek support for the development of the teaching note, right? So once you are done with that, then and then you would be able to, write the case well. So this is the journey that I have tried to explain you, and when you are looking for this journey, you have to keep in mind different roles, you have to keep in mind different aspects, you have to keep in mind, various alternatives, you have to keep in mind who would be your facilitators, you have to keep in mind who would be the learners, who you have to keep in mind who would be the publication housing, you have to keep in mind what would be the ultimate objective and how the objective would be sold and how the objective would be achieved. You also have to keep in mind teaching notes, and thereby the journey is really so beautiful. Many a times people are scared about writing the case, but in reality, it's nothing like that. The case writing journey, it's really such an interesting journey. And when you are developing the case, the aspects that we have discussed, which are very, very important aspects, okay, and you all can keep in mind about these aspects. And if you start a journey of case writing, I'm very, very sure about the success of the case. And case writing, believe me, it's very, very easy compared to writing any research paper. Here need not to, write down the analysis and write down the, things in the form of structural equation modeling or this thing or that thing. Here, you have to be specific about the situation. You have to keep in mind learner-centric approach. You have to wear the shoes of the reader, and you have to write so that they are able to utilize it in a proper way. And that is the path of case writing, the journey. So thank you so much for the session. And I thank once again UGC HRDC for this good opportunity and looking forward for the long-term association. If you have any question with this reference, you can ping me on 9726676890, or you can write me on nilamcpanchal@gmail.com. Thank you.